Hello. This is a focus stacked image which was created from a number of individual images. This video is about using a set of images like that to create a version of an image that has a somewhat 3D appearance to it. It's not genuinely 3D, you can't turn it right round to the side and look because you're dealing with a lot of images that were captured from the front. But you can get a bit of a 3D impression from them. I haven't found many examples of these. Perhaps the best one I've come across has been this one, which is taken from the Helicon Focus site, one of the examples they provide. This is one that I produced, and this started with me wanting to capture images of this paperweight, which is one of my wife's prized possessions. I've tried before taking photos of it with single images, but they didn't work out to my satisfaction. And what I did was to create focus stacked images so that I could produce the image we've seen and a handful of others. Each of these was created from between about 50 to 160 or 70 images. I captured the images using a Panasonic G80, which allows you to use focus bracketing, where you tell it how many images you want to capture and how far apart you want each one from the next on a scale of 1 to 10, from 1 very close to one another to 10 not so close to one another. And I used manual focus and focused just in front of the nearest thing I wanted to be in focus, set it going, and it went off from front to back capturing images. So let's have a look at the images that we used to create this one. There are 100 of them, and let's just look through. We're starting at the front, and a few little bits and pieces are coming into focus. Now that big bubble is coming into focus, is going out of focus again, and things behind it are coming more into focus and going out of focus. So what we want to do is to combine these to produce a single focus stacked image, and this is on the way to producing that other sort of somewhat 3D version. So we'll select those 100 images and put them into Helicon Focus, which has put them in backwards, so the ones at the front, the nearest images to us, are actually at the bottom of the list, which can get a bit confusing. Now we could just tell Helicon Focus to stack them at this point, but I want to just look through them a bit first and explain why I don't want to do that. So I'm now going from the nearest away towards the distance, and around here, if we take a close look, we can see this is the front edge of the glass, and it's got dust and marks on it, and I'd prefer, if I can, to not have that in the image. So what I'll do is to move past that, but before anything important fully comes into focus. So now those dust is mainly not visible, but nothing important has come into focus. It's just starting to get into focus up the top there. And with a lot of these things, there are compromises as to exactly where you draw the line with these things. So what I'm going to do now is to tell it to not use all the ones towards the front. So I'm now down to 70 images, and I'll tell it to stack them. There's a choice of 3 methods, and it's a bit of a black art as to which one you use, and in fact sometimes you have to use more than one and combine them. That's a different story that I've done a separate video about. In this case I'm going to use this method C, and with some of the methods I have sliders that I have to tell it what values I want. In this case there aren't any other sliders, so I'll just tell it to do the rendering. Now this is going to take a minute or two, and what it's doing is examining each of those 70 images in order and picking out what is best in focus as it goes through, and that's what it's going to combine. So what we'll do is leave it there for the moment and come back when that's finished. Okay, it's finished now, and we've got a focused stacked image, and various things might or might not happen at this stage. I might have to do another version. There might be halos on it that I needed to get or try and get rid of. There may be other problems with posterization in the background and some other things. But for now, this one looks okay. I mean, normally what I'd do then, when I'd finished playing around with it in Helicon Focus, I'd send it off to Lightroom and do the final adjustments in Lightroom. In this case, I want to produce one of these 3D-like versions of the image, and I have to do that from inside Helicon Focus. What that means is that I can't apply the sort of edits that I normally do in Lightroom, because once it's become one of those 3D things, I can't edit it. So if I did want to, for example, alter the white point or black point, the gamma, put a curve on it or whatever, I'd have to do that to all the individual images first before I stacked them. That's not quite as bad as it sounds. In something like Lightroom you can do the whole lot in one go. But for now we'll just leave this like it is and produce this so-called 3D version. And doing that is actually fairly straightforward. You simply say export a 3D model. It then is showing you what it's produced. Now there are some parameters we can play with here, and one of them, a rather important one, is this invert surface. At the moment this looks a bit odd to me, and I'm just going to click on the invert surface one, and no, I tell a lie, it actually looks better that way round. Some of them, it's odd, some of them look better inverted, some of them look better not inverted. I don't know why that is. What's looking unnatural about that to me at the moment is that the height seems very exaggerated. So you've got this parameter called relief amplifier, and I'll push it in the wrong direction to begin with, and you can see the effect. That's pushing it a long way in one way. I suppose you could have somewhat artistic effect with this, and pushing it back the other way, it becomes a completely flat image. So I'll take it a little way out, but not as far as it was in the default version. This is the default view, and I'll take it back a bit from there. There's also something called smoothing, which again, that combination of those two together is what I used on the ones that I produced, and there are some other things you can play with as well, like the angle it's rotating it at, the speed at which it's rotating it, and how far in you are to it. And that's basically the process. Oh, another thing that I did was to change the background colour so that it was a bit more fitted a bit better with the image, and then you just save that. And the format that gets saved in is a special format that only Helicon Focus knows about, and there's a program that's free to distribute which can be used to view this sort of image. So that's the process. It's fairly straightforward. As to how much use this would be, well, I think it varies. One of the things you'll notice is that you get these strange wobbly edges, and it's quite easy to get a very strange looking effect. Oh, by the way, there are some other things here where you can alter the angles that you're looking at and rotate it in one way and another, and also you can illuminate it from different angles as well, which can change the look of it. Yeah, I've got another example which gives me pause as to just how useful this is going to be in general. I mean, one of the things about this current one, if I just put it back to the default view, this is odd in the sense that we're looking inside an object. The question arises of what is it like looking from, as it were, from the outside of an object. Well, we saw that with the fly, that looked okay. Looks pretty good actually, I think. But as to how much use this is going to be in general, well, you can get some very strange effects, and I'll try and show you one now. And that is, I just need to go here to get at it. This one. Now this is an ordinary scene, but you get these very the almost surreal effect with these the bendy nature of things. And if I put this back to the default view, if we look at this bottle here, we'll see that it goes bendy. It's very strange, and you'd have to pick and work out what sort of things this will work for and what it won't. It may be that it works best where there is a single object that you're looking at, like with the fly, which it's centered on, and that you're having a bit of a peek around and about it. For complicated scenes like this, I mean, it's where you know what it should look like. I think it just looks silly. The ones that I've done, if we have a look at the I made one for each of the 6 of the focus stacked images that I did. This is the one, oh, this is not the one that we looked at, this is another one. So that's one. We've seen that one already. This one. and I think these are not too bad. But I think probably the reason why they look okay-ish is that you don't really know what it should look like, as opposed to the one of all the stuff on my desk where you know very well what it should look like and it simply doesn't look right at all. Whereas the fly looks not too bad. So there we are, 3D images, as they're called, somewhat 3D, 2 and a little bit dimensional is the way I'd think of it. But, well, it's another technique to have in the kit bag and to find some good examples, or possibly, and play with. So, that's all for now. Goodbye.